Hi, my name is Mike Starkey. I'm a farmer on the northwest side of Annapolis in Brownsburg, Indiana. It's a family farm. I'm the fourth generation. I farm with my nephew Jeff, who's my partner since 1986, when my dad was actually killed in a farming accident. So him and I have been farming partners ever since then. He lives here where I grew up at the farm. He has a son that farms also full-time with us. The fifth generation and the sixth generation. And actually, there's a seventh generation on the farm. He has a daughter. Jeff also has an additional son going to college, and a daughter also that's expecting. I have a son that works part-time on the farm with me, and a daughter who's a family physician who I have two granddaughters from, and a son-in-law also. We consider ourselves a family farm because we're all involved with it. I like to improve what's on our farm for future generations, for my grandchildren, Jeff's grandchildren, to keep it as is, if not to improve the farm's soil that it has, to make it even better for future generations. We raise corn, soybeans, and wheat. Mostly here in Indiana, that's basically what we do. We also raise hay. We also have a few beef cattle that we sell as freezer beef. And we also have some sweet corn that Jeff actually sells with his family here at the roadside that we raise. Kind of makes it fun to add diverse crops in our mix. I guess you would consider myself a conservationist because the type of farming that we do is no-till farming. No-till farming is where we do not disturb the soil. We do not till the soil. We have tools like cover crops that we bring into the mix. We actually like to see the biological activity in our soil, the living soil, produce and recover the nutrients that's in the soil. Added to that, we live in a very urban environment. The area that we live, we have several houses, several people that live nearby us, which is a good thing because we like to educate and promote the type of farming that we do for sustainability. Also, we're involved with a water monitoring project, which is an extensive water monitoring project. I have several partners involved with that, and we're going to get to see the water monitoring on our farm, along with some soil demonstrations of what our soil is doing. With that, let's get at it and check out the farm. This is a soybean field that we have that we planted this spring. Actually, April 12th was our planting date. We have learned planting earlier, you definitely get more increased yield. But a big issue was this year we had an early frost, and it dinged a lot of soybeans. Fortunately, not mine. My soybeans, when you plant in a no-till cover crop environment, we make sure that we plant them deep, and they do grow a lot slower. But when they catch up big because the soil health is so active with the root mass that it puts on that we have soybeans like this. This is late July, and I'm just looking at these soybeans, and the pods are just already loading up. So a good year this year, it looks like. Fortunately, we had the rains. We need those rains, but that adds to it. But soybeans is such an awesome crop to raise. I love raising soybeans because you can visually see them a lot better, and it's easier to scout. Looking back, as I told you earlier, though, the price of our soybeans are basically not as good as we would like. We had these tariffs put on the last couple of years that hurt us. We lost a lot of trade that exports, and therefore we're struggling as a soybean farmer. But as a conservation farmer, as a no-till farmer, I can survive in those times because The inputs have gone down tremendously. I don't have the tillage equipment. I just plant straight into this cover crop soil that we have. And the added benefit with that is our yields have increased. And when I see these yields consistently increase, then I can offset that reduction in price that we have had, especially the last couple of years.
Hi, I'm Shannon Zizula, and I'm with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Natural Resources Conservation Service here in Indiana. If you're not familiar with our agency, we are with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and we have a presence in every county across the nation, and we work with farmers every day, one-on-one, on their farm, helping them with their conservation issues. So today we're going to talk about Mike Starkey, one of our premier farmers in this nation, and why we're so excited about how he farms and taking his message and what we've learned from what he's done and all his hard-earned lessons to other farmers. And the first thing we like to do is show how Mike's soil functions compared to other farmers' soil who have a different management system. And just to be clear, this is Mike's soil on his farm. He uses a continuous no-till system. He does not use tillage at all. And after every harvest, he plants cover crops. And he is primarily a corn and soybean farmer. So after corn harvest and after soybean harvest, he plants a cover crop in his soil to protect his soil and build his soil up. So first of all, we want to show you the differences. Again, Mike's soil, continuous no-till, continuous cover crops, and a typical farmer's who uses no-till for his soybeans, but then uses tillage for his corn. Now you can see the color difference. Mike's soil is a little bit darker brown. The reason for that is his soil has higher organic matter. Now, any farmer knows that organic matter makes the soil more productive. And we're going to also show you what that organic matter does for the soil, especially when we get these extreme rain events and extreme drought events, and how Mike's soil functions compared to other farmers' soils. Okay? So first of all, we want to show what happens when it rains and when soil is subjected to water. So we're going to drop these soils in water, and we're going to see what happens. Now, if you can see, bubbles are coming up. That's because there's air in soil. And as the water goes to the soil, it goes into those air pores. And as you can see, something's happening. Again, this is Mike's soil. This is the soil from how a lot of farmers farm as well. Now, what's happening here? As the water goes into the soil and the air is pushed out, the force of the water is exerting itself on the soil. This soil does not have enough structure, and so it's falling apart. Mike's soil has structure, and it's staying together. So when it rains, if your soil is functioning like this and falling apart, it's subject to loss. If you have nutrients that you just applied on the field, or pesticides in your sediment, it has a chance of leaving your farm. Mike's soil stays on his farm, and it's building. And again, the reason for that is actually organic matter, but the basic reason is soil biology. Mike, because he's not tilling his soil, and because he's feeding the soil every year with cover crop roots, is feeding the biology. The biology, and I'm talking bacteria, beneficial fungi, nematodes, earthworms, biology, soil life, is building biotic glues that hold the soil together. This soil does not have biotic glues, and so it falls apart. So we ask farmers, if you're gonna invest in your farm and pass your farm on to the next family generation, how do you want to leave that farm? Do you want it to be unhealthy, or do you want to have healthy soil and keep the soil in place? Now again, here's these soils as well. These are straight out of the field. This is Mike's soil. This is this soil here. If you can see here, it's like rock. Do any farmers experience compaction? Do you experience crusting? When soil is like this, it's more subject to crusting, more subject to compaction. So let's show you another demonstration here. Same soil, Mike's soil here, other farmer soil here. We have holes in these jars under here, and we're going to make it rain on these. What we did is we tilled up Mike's soil, and we tilled up the normally tilled soil. And we're going to make it rain. And we're gonna see what happens. These are just cups with holes and make it rain. So we're gonna pour water in here, and we're gonna see what else happens, see why this is also important. Why soil that functions like this, what it can mean. Look at here. Where's that water going? It's going through the soil, into the soil. Look at this. With tillage and without cover crops, our soils, if you can see that, water's right on top there. So what's happening here? Since soil, if it's not functioning, the power of a raindrop, if you think of a raindrop falling from the sky, it has tremendous power when it hits the soil. And think of a micronuclear explosion. As that raindrop hits the soil, if the soil is behaving like this, it poof. And when it settles back down, it seals off those pores, just like we have here. And look at here, that water is still standing on top of that soil because it can't get in. So what we want is when it does rain, we want that raindrop to enter the soil where it hits and go through that soil profile. And as that water goes through that profile, it's held there by that organic matter. That organic matter acts like a sponge, and it holds that water. And so when it turns off really dry in July and August, Mike's crops have water. If the water never got into the soil, and look here, what if we have just a 0.5% slope? Where's that water gonna go? It's not gonna, it doesn't go in the soil where it hit. It's subject to leaving that field. And when it leaves that field like this, we have muddy water, we have nutrients in the water, we have pesticides in the water. As this soil settles and it compacts, we end up like with this, compaction and crusting. And if you can see here, can you see the layers? Each of these layers is a rain event. It rained, that soil left where the raindrop hit, flowed to a low spot in the field and settled here. There's about 10 layers here. 10 rain events created the soil from up on the field, brought it down to this spot where it's gonna do no good. This part of the field where the soil left is less productive. Where the soil settled out is less productive, it's crusted. Now we have production issues as well as water quality issues and other things that do not benefit anybody, the farmer or the water or anybody else.
There is one piece of equipment that I use here constantly, and it's critical if you're going to get into no-till, and that's a sprayer. The sprayer I use not only for spraying herbicides, pesticides if needed, but I apply my nitrogen on an as-needed basis to my corn. And also my wheat. I cover my wheat acres so many times, but the herbicides that I applied, the pesticides I applied, the fertilizer that I applied is so much less than what my dad applied, because it's more of a different type of farming where the weed suppression is knocked down by my cover crops. So therefore, I don't have to spray the weeds like my dad did. There's different type of weeds out there also that my dad had in the conventional till environment. So therefore, it's nice to have this type of equipment. Very expensive, but it's, like I said, it's very critical to have.
My name is Bob Barr. I'm a research scientist with the Center for Earth and Environmental Science at IUPUI. Mike Starkey has allowed me to hang out in these fields for over 15 years now, the last 6 of which we've been doing this Edge of Field project, which you can see behind me. Edge of Field is simply the latest effort by the NRCS, the Natural Resource Conservation Service, to understand what's coming off of the farm fields in this country, particularly here in the Eastern Corn Belt, because of the large contribution we have historically seen into the Gulf of Mexico and the hypoxia that we continue to experience in that area. So here, we sample continuously. We also have a USGH super gauge upstream and one downstream that let us know what's happening in the stream itself in terms of water quality. We get real-time nitrogen measurements, real-time phosphorus measurements, real-time sediment measurements, and we can compare those to what's coming off of this field. We can also compare them to one another. So at the north end of this field that I'm standing in right now, on Maloney Road, we have one super gauge. That tells us what's coming into Mike's farm. At the downstream end, about a mile away, we have another super gauge on 750, County Road 750. It will tell us the same information as the water leaves Mike's farm. We want to see the difference, we want to see the change, and we use that as part of a black box to let us know what's coming off of his fields. We get the same set of information from the instruments in the box behind me for what's coming off of his field. So we can start partitioning and attributing loads to different parts of the farm and to different areas in this watershed, which is an important thing when you're looking at a water supply system. The importance of Eagle Creek can't be overstated. It is a critical part of the Indianapolis public water supply. And like public water supplies in all of the Eastern Corn Belt states, it's experienced problems with algal blooms, eutrophication, so too much nutrient getting into the water and too much vegetation occurring in the water, leading to die-offs, depleted oxygen levels, and a host of different water quality issues. So we can't really address that problem well once it's occurring. So what we have to do is try to get ahead of it. And that's why we're here at Starkey Farms. It's another critical piece of what we want to do this. So one of the interesting things that we've learned here at Starkey Farms is historically, the conventional wisdom was that the sources for nutrient loads coming into the streams were the tiles. The tiles were the bad players. The tiles were always what we would call hot, so they would have the highest nutrient loads. Mike is showing on this farm that we can actually reverse that, so that the water coming off of Mike's tiles is of better quality than the receiving stream. Something that had really not been seen before, and makes us think a lot about this conventional wisdom of tiled fields are necessarily going to be a problem. That's not always true. So one of the pieces that I personally am very interested in is, in addition to the water quality aspects, there are water quantity aspects. We have increased very heavy rains. We have climate change occurring across the Eastern Corn Belt. We are seeing on average 30% more very heavy storms than we saw back in 1978. We're seeing an increased intensity in these storms. With the intense storms, you get increased runoff. With increased runoff across broad areas like this, you get increased flooding. So we have tried, again, for decades to lower flooding expenses in this country, but the losses just keep going up because we haven't had a good way to control runoff. We don't have a good place to store all that water because most of our agriculture in all of the agricultural states, Indiana, Iowa, Illinois, has all been designed to move water off the landscape quickly so that we can get our crops planted in the spring. And that's an important aspect. But with more people living downstream, we also need to figure out how to moderate that flood pulse. One of the things that soil health practice does, that think about this as an added benefit, is that it holds more water. It increases the soil moisture, giving us the largest sponge and the largest reservoir for water that we have. Hopefully, over time, reducing the runoff and helping us to at least keep flooding from getting worse if we can improve it. One of the things that we have seen in this watershed that is on our mind frequently is the continued development around these farms. With the increased pressure from residential development, with the increased pressure around agricultural lands throughout the country, it's imperative that we farm these lands as effectively as we can to be sustainable with these lands and to preserve these lands. These are really, this is the cupboard for many nations. Indiana farmers are exporting soybeans around the world, and to continue doing that, they have to support and sustain their farms.
Another big part of my farming is water quality. Whenever you get in a no-till environment, it all starts with tiling your fields. You got to have the correct drainage. Our forefathers put our tiles in many, many years ago. Unfortunately, now we have these extreme weather events that our tiles are kind of worn out. So the drainage is very important to have to get started with the no-till farming. With that, I'm involved with a local district. Every district in Indiana, or every county in Indiana has a soil and water conservation district. I am a board member of our local soil and water conservation district. It's the soil and water. And not only soil is very important for soil health, for sustainability, but water is. We all drink water, we all need water, and water's our valuable resource that we need to protect and preserve, just like our soil. So it goes all in hand with what we have. That's the reason I'm involved with the partnership that I am, monitoring the water that not only comes in my farm, but also when it leaves the farm. We're constantly monitoring the water, what's happening on our farm. Tiles, surface water, in-stream, that's where we're at right now, in-stream water quality. Because again, this is the source of drinking water for Indianapolis, so it's critical that all partners are involved. NRCS, USGS, Indiana University, any university out of Indianapolis, Citizens Water, the health departments, our local districts, all together to perform and review this type of practices that we do on our farm. The Edge of Field Water Monitoring Project is just something that has been so successful because it involves several partners putting their heads together. Funding's important, and obviously my participation as a farmer is important. Therefore, it's good information not only for myself, but it's great information for not only our state of Indiana, but actually being observed nationally. It's actually been observed globally. We've had people from all over the world to come here and observe this water monitoring project because it's so unique of what they're doing on our farm, of the type of practices we're doing to improve water quality. And that's what it's all about. Well, I hope you enjoyed the tour that you had today. It's a little basic background of who we are and what we do, who our family is, the type of farming that we do. Our family likes to continue the legacy of what we do, and one of our mottos is to work hard, but enjoy family, families first, faith first, and enjoy life. Don't be stressed out about it. We learn from our failures. I made a lot of failures. It's important to actually have failures to learn from that, because you just can't start doing this type of farming with both feet in it and expect it to work. It's taken me many, many years to improve the farming practices that I do. And now we can manage the weather a lot better than we used to, the extreme weather events that we have. If you start into this type of farming, you got to get your drainage started right. Those old tiles that my forefathers put in, they're worn out. So get that drainage taken care of, and then you can kind of gradually get into the no-till cover crop biological activity that our living soil provides. Thanks, and have a great day.